Yes, she worked for a family over there, a wealthy family. It's kind of a, a house maid.
But I've heard.
So, and then she worked for a family called Gerlachs, but I think they were over. That was probably kind of when Dad married her. I think they were over in the Bitterroot Valley there somewhere. They were some people that were moneyed people, and worked for them as just a, a maid, kind of. So they were married in Spokane, I think, and then they came, and it was wintertime, or I should say it was early spring, but it was pretty wintry yet. And I remember they got out to Joe Tacky's, and snow was so deep, and they had to stay all night at Joe Tacky's before they got down to Dad's shack, So the old shack was just vertical boards with, one before is over the cracks. One thing, Dad, creature comforts wasn't too much of a, his shack was probably only 12 by 12 or something, In fact, it was made so that he could build a fire in the stove from his bed. The fire would go out during the night and be cold, so he'd have lumber, or not lumber, but wood kindling and stuff, so he could just put this kindling in and some newspaper, and light it, and then pour some coal on it, and have it heated, but while he was still in bed. So she lived the first year in that house, and it was cold. He'd put deadening felt, which is kind of a paper. You could wet it, and it could kind of mold to and then it would kind of stick, and it would make it. But the wall was only boards, and Mother about froze to death for that winter, The story goes that Dad didn't believe in wasting too much water, because water was quite a problem out here. We didn't have any wells or anything like that. Dad was riding over on Basin Coulee, and Mother, some of the bedding and stuff hadn't been washed, so she while he was over there, she burned it. And there was a cattle buyer came by and wanted to look at the cattle, and he went over to see Morris. Of course, he had a car, and went over there, and he said, "Yeah, you better get home." He said, "Your wife's burning all your bedding." But I can imagine, because some of those old homesteaders, that water was really precious. See, they were married in April, and I was born in December, so they got connected right away. And but I think the next year in '28 is when they moved the houses together and gave more room. That was one of the tragedies in the early day. The houses were not very well built, and the winter come along, and the wind would blow right through them practically, with no insulation or anything like that. And in fact, Pat and I, see, when they lived in that little two shack down there, there was no heat in our bedroom. And I remember Mother would go in, and she always kept some flat irons at the back of the stove, because the only heat we had was out of the cook stove for the other two rooms. And she would take an old flat iron that was hot, and go in and iron the sheets for us, so it would be warm, and then Mom and Dad slept in the same room too. So those were kind of the real Depression years. I remember one incident when we were in the little house. Shoes were, you didn't get many shoes, but I remember being a boy, I'd crawl around in the dirt and everything, and I wore the toe of my shoes out, and of course the soles were and Dad would just put cardboard, and stuff paper on the toes. Well, I got a new pair of shoes, and this would have been in the fall, and I got up one morning and dressed, but the shoes had been in the bedroom, and they were real cold, and Mother and Dad were getting breakfast, and I noticed the oven was open, so I just stuck the shoes in there and closed the oven, in the hopes of warming them up. Well, of course, like a kid, I forgot them. And pretty soon we started smelling something, you know. And I remember opening up the door, and the shoes were all dried out and curled up, you know. And oh man, I thought disaster. And I remember Dad, he never did say too much. He said, well, go get your other shoes. He said, I'll put some more cardboard in them. You'll have to wear them. And but this, I don't know what month it was, but I think at Christmas time or something, or my birthday, I got a new pair of shoes.